Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you at 6 o'clock. Boris, a very good morning to you. It's Tuesday, May the 12th. Our main story, Boris Johnson has defended his plans to relax the lockdown rules in England at a faster rate than the rest of the UK. The government's issued guidance to try and clear up some of the confusion that has surrounded the proposals. John McManus has this report.
Just a reminder, our government interview today is 7:30 as per usual. We'll be speaking to the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock. And before him, we'll hear from the Deputy Labour leader, Angela Rayner. She's going to be here about 7:20. So if you've got any questions for either of those, do get in touch. bbcbreakfast@bbc.co.uk.
And thank you for all your questions so far. There are lots. It's not just England where the lockdown is being relaxed. Singapore is also planning to let some businesses reopen as well.
Let's speak to our Asia business correspondent. We'll speak to you a bit later on. That's an update on a robot dog live from Singapore.
Stonehenge has been hosting the summer solstice celebrations for around 5 millennia, but this year's event has been cancelled because of the coronavirus.
Those are some of the main stories around this morning. It's 6:10. Loads to come in the programme, but anyone who used public transport to commute to work before the virus will remember the problems of late, cancelled and overcrowded services.
So how will it work when passenger numbers creep back up and there are even fewer buses, train and trams with just a fraction of their previous capacity? Breakfast Tim Muffet has been talking to commuters. We're talking about transport with somebody talking about buses a little bit later, because it's absolutely clear, you know, social distancing is going to mean massive changes, isn't it?
The world is going to be very different on so many sort of levels once we do come out fully the other side of this.
Should we have a look at the front pages of the front pages? I was going to do that.
Oh, you go on, you do.
Should I talk about this?
Sadness in our household yesterday about this one as well.
Absolutely. And this is about Monty Don's, a beloved dog. Lots of you will know all about Monty Don's dog, Nigel, as well, didn't he? He was really, really much loved and causing lots of people. Look, you're even quoted in this, Dan.
Am I?
Yeah.
What did I say?
I just noticed.
I can't quite. Oh, no.
Dan Walker, look. BBC Breakfast presenter Dan Walker wrote, "Sorry, Monty. He was a much-loved part of the Gardener's World experience." Wasn't he, indeed?
He used to love it when Monty would walk through camera and then Nigel would sort of just plod along behind him. So
yeah, Monty Don, he talked quite a lot about how gardening helps stave off depression, but also Nigel as well.
Back page of the paper, Sally's going to be talking about this today, sort of sport slowly getting back and how things are changing. But you've got still footballers questioning whether the Premier League should return. Danny Rose last night on social media angrily declared that it was putting players' lives at risk, and this was after Raheem Sterling revealed that some members of his family have actually died during the coronavirus outbreak as well. So it's really interesting to see whether it will happen, when it will happen, and under what circumstances. That's something Sally will look at later on.
You've seen so many rainbows, haven't you, when you're out about, if you're allowed to be out and about, on people's windows, and
the perils of the reply all email. Have you ever hit reply all? Well,
Luckily, I'm not a big fan of reply all.
This is not the awkward one where you send a message to somebody privately on reply all. This is where you reply all, and then all of a sudden, within a few minutes, it's clogged the entire system up, and the whole server just breaks down. So Microsoft are putting in place some sort of software that will catch those reply alls when people say, "Can you take me off this list?" and everyone else gets involved, and all of a sudden the office shuts down. So they're going to try and stop it. And it talks about a famous incident back in 1997, which happened at Microsoft. And it's referred to as Bedlam DL3, which was Distribution List 3. Apparently, one person sent a message to a mailing list with 25,000 people on it, and within 1 hour, there were 15 million messages generated by people saying, "Can you take me off this list? I don't want to be on this list. Who's sending these messages?" And that used 195 gigabytes of data, and it took 2 days to restore the servers. Apparently, there are T-shirts saying, "I survived Bedlam DL3," still available. So beware the reply all.
We are getting used to thanking all of our frontline workers on a Thursday night. But this evening at 8:30, we can do something special for one group in particular.
This is to mark International Nurses Day and the 200th anniversary of the birth of Florence Nightingale. We're all invited to show our appreciation by shining a light from a window.
Our Scotland correspondent Lorna Gordon has been following the journey of one new nurse who cut short her training to join the fight against COVID-19. Now, before the coronavirus outbreak began to dominate the news, one issue we were following closely on Breakfast was the death of 19-year-old Harry Dunn and his family's fight for justice.
You remember Harry was riding his motorcycle last August when he was in a collision with a car outside a US airbase in Northamptonshire. Well, the driver was Anne Secoulis, but as the wife of a US intelligence official, she was able to claim diplomatic immunity and return home to the United States.
An attempt to extradite her failed, but now her name has been added to an Interpol list, which means she is wanted internationally and could be arrested if she leaves the USA. We can talk now to Harry's mum joining us. Charlotte, first of all, I mean, when you heard this, what did you think?
You know, we've obviously been covering the coronavirus outbreak, as has everybody else, but I'm sure your fight has continued. Had you felt that there was no way you would get to a stage like this, that you'd find this this notice going out in this way? Rad, I was going to ask you as well, if she does choose to stay in the United States indefinitely, is the only way that you can get her to come back to the UK, obviously with the help of the American authorities?
Because, you know, these are really difficult times for you. We've spoken to you so much over the last few months, presumably not helped in some ways by the other thing everybody's having to deal with. How are you all coping? Sorry. I
know it must be heartbreaking, Charlotte. I know it's important as well for you to, you know, be talking about this morning, because this is, as you say, and Rad has reiterated, this is a really important breakthrough for you. I remember when we spoke to you last time, you made a very passionate plea directly to Anne Secoulis to say, please come back to the UK, because you were desperate for justice for your son. Do you feel you're a step nearer to that? Do you feel there is a chance that she may well return and see justice here? Painful, but it's nice to speak to you again, Charlotte. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. And Rad, good to see you as well.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Really good to talk to you again. Thank you very much indeed. Let's find out what's going on with the weather. A bit chilly again this morning, isn't it, Matt? Morning.
It is indeed, Louise. Very good morning to you. Good morning to you.
Thank you for that update, Matt. We'll see you a bit later on.
Thank you. Hello, very good morning. You are watching Breakfast with Dan and Louise.
It's just gone 6:30 this morning. We've got the latest news. We've got the sport coming your way with Sally as well, but also on the...
Just after 6:30, you are watching BBC Breakfast, and this morning we're talking about how the changes to lockdown rules in England might affect your commute, your leisure plans, your children's education.
Yeah, loads of areas to cover. Normally at this point of the day, we have a GP on. Who have we got today?
We have. It's Dr. William...
Very much enjoy our chats with doctors at half. I feel like I learn at least one thing every day.
Who knew?
Sally is with us today as well. We mentioned on the back page of the paper, Sal, good morning to you. Lots of talk about sport returning, particularly sort of attention on football. What's the latest we have this morning?
Yeah.
Goals to their strikers. Do you remember them? Oh, yes, exactly. Near post header.
In detail.
Yes. Sally, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sal. See you a bit later on.
So, builders, factory workers, garden centre staff are among those preparing to go back to work tomorrow, but only if the business is in England and only if it is COVID secure.
Yeah, that's the phrase. That's how the Prime Minister describes companies which have put proper safety measures in place. Well, our business correspondent Sarah Corker has been to some of those who are making preparations to get things COVID secure.
Sean, about that as well, and we've got Matt Hancock here at 7:30. Thank you very much for all your questions for him. If you've got more, you look like you're somewhere you not only got a grand piano, but it looks grand as well. Where are you?
Rare and fascinating talent, and we would be heavily criticised if we didn't use it today. So let's test you out. I'm going to so if I just shout a year at you, you can tell us who won it, what the song was, and then play it for us. Is that all right?
Brilliant. Can I just go for 2001? No particular reason why? Obviously,
I'm just checking. Yes, it was. Yeah, everybody was.
Great talent and too much free time. Can I just ask?
It's not a talent. It's a medical.
For you, a kind of best and a worst. What that song was. Brilliant.
And Steve, you're going to be back with us at 8:50 today, and I think you'll be playing with. We now call them the Fizz, but Bucks Fizz as was.
It's wonderful to see you.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. It makes a change.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you at 7 o'clock. Boris Johnson urged... It's a Tuesday, May the 12th. Our main story. Boris Johnson has defended his plans to relax the lockdown rules in England at a faster rate than the rest of the UK. He also said he was confident that people would use their common sense. John McManus has more.
Lots of information to try and digest this morning.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Just a reminder for you this morning, if you've just switched on your TV, we'll be speaking to the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, at 7:30 this morning. The Labour Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, is going to be here in about 10 minutes' time. And also the Welsh Health Minister at 8:30 this morning.
So much to talk about, and thank you very much for all of your questions as well. Stonehenge has been hosting summer solstice celebrations for around 5 millennia, but this year's event has been cancelled because of coronavirus.
It's approaching 7:10 now. Windswept walks along beaches and beauty spots probably seem like a lifetime ago for everybody watching this morning. So you might have welcomed the news that in England at least we can drive wherever we like to take our exercise from tomorrow.
But those who live in tourist hotspots say they have grave concerns about a new influx of visitors. Breakfast John Maguire sent this report from the seaside resort of Weston-super-Mare.
The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says the Prime Minister's roadmap for lifting the lockdown offers no clear directions.
In a televised statement, he asked for more clarity and reassurance from Boris Johnson.
Let's speak to Labour's Deputy, Matt Hancock, who's going to be with us in just a few minutes' time.
Before that, though, let's catch up on how the weather is looking. Matt's here, morning.
Matt, we'll see you a little bit later on this morning. Good
Thanks,
to talk
Matt.
to you. Hello, it's 7:31. You're watching Breakfast with Louise and Dan this morning.
Boris Johnson has defended his plans to relax the lockdown rules in England at a faster rate than the rest of the UK. He also said he was confident that people would use their common sense after Labour said more clarity was needed. Well, let's see if we can get some clarity right now. We can speak to the health.
Thank you very much for all the questions you've been sending through.
There is a real sense there, isn't it, from those questions? You know, people really want to try and get to answers, and particularly as well.
Yeah, we had
see
thousands
families.
yesterday, didn't we, for Dominic Raab, and again, a huge amount today. And as you were saying, so many of them are about families, about how to see loved ones that you haven't been able to hug, to see for, we're in the 8th week now of lockdown, aren't we? So it's been a long time, and you can understand that desperation from so many people.
Something else that came out yesterday was facial coverings. Just a few months ago, Sophie Passmore was busy making elaborate costumes for an ITV show called, you probably watched it, I know you watched it, The Masked Singer.
It was very elaborate, wasn't it? Now she's making masks of a very different sort, sewing around 10 facial coverings a day to protect key workers and those in their care from coronavirus. Delighted to say we can speak to Sophie now. One of those masks with you, can we see it? And sort of, be great if you could take us and our viewers through how you sort of put it together.
Sure, certainly.
Doable for anybody.
It's doable.
Who you've been making those for, and how have they been going down, the ones that you've been making and handing out?
Yes, yes,
Mask when you're out and about now?
absolutely fit. And these fitted ones need to be actually fitted for the individual.
6 weeks. I'm sure many
Thank
people
you,
in Brighton
Sophie.
have benefited from that. And thanks for your advice this morning as well. I'm sure that's very helpful for many of our viewers. Thanks, Sophie.
It does look like we might be able to
Yeah.
do that. In the last hour, Ryanair, which is Europe's biggest airline, has said it's looking to increase the number of flights from the beginning of July.
Sean has hopefully got the boss with him this morning. Morning, Sean.
Morning.
The conclusion.
It's been a very, very busy hour on BBC Breakfast for you. Lots of interviews to pack in. Hope you've enjoyed listening to some of them. Let's find out what's happening with the weather. Matt has got the details for us. What a beautiful picture behind you. Good morning. You're watching Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you today. Tuesday, May the 12th, our main story for you. Boris Johnson has defended his plans to relax the lockdown rules in England at a faster rate than the rest of the UK. He also said he was confident that people would use their common sense.
In England from...
John McManus has more for you. Talking just a little bit earlier, wasn't she? It is 8:10. You're watching BBC Breakfast.
Anyone who used public transport to get to work before coronavirus will remember problems of lateness, cancellations and overcrowded services, something we talked about a lot.
So how will it work when passenger numbers creep back up and there are even fewer buses, train and trams with just a fraction of their previous capacity? So many questions again. Breakfast Tim Muffet has been talking to commuters. People will be focusing on this today as well. Graham, morning to you both. So Graham, for example, in buses, how will social distancing work, do you think? Face coverings. If people are trying to get on a bus without face covering, and you say they need to leave a seat in front empty, a seat behind them empty, if they are, in your view, not obeying the guidelines, what happens? Who polices it? Does the bus conductors or the bus driver say, no, you can't be here? What happens?
So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think this is going to be messy when it starts off.
People are being encouraged to go back to work from tomorrow if they can. Are these guidelines, do they come out soon enough?
Over the next few days, going to think very carefully about. And one thing which I know has really sort of shone through in the questions and the comments that you've been sending through for us to ask those who've come on this programme from the government for the last few days has all been about spending time with family and loved ones, hasn't it?
If you've spent the last 7 weeks longing to see a friend or relative face to face, your wait is nearly over.
From tomorrow, if you live in England, you can meet one person from a different household, providing that you're both in a public space and you stay 2 metres apart throughout that meeting.
What difference is that going to make? We can talk now to Joe Roberts. Congratulate you first on the birth of your sons. How brilliant. But, I mean, where should we start, Joe? Let's start with you and not being able to see your mum during what is a really difficult time. How much difference will it make if you can go and see her in a public space?
People watching this morning are going through that exact same process. They're missing that ability to hug those who just need a hug at the moment, those that they love. And you've also, as Louise was saying in the introduction there, you've had these new additions to the family as well. And Lauren, anybody who has gone through the process that you have been through knows that one of the great joys...
I mean, you explain it so well, actually. So, I mean, so you'll see... So you've made plans to see your mum, and then when do you get to see the babies as well? Hey, Joe, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we can't wait.
Look at the smile on your face. A bit of time with us this morning and sharing, the issues that you as a family are going through. And I'm sure that's being shared by so many people who are watching this morning and just wishing that they, like you, could go and hug a member of their family who they haven't seen for a very long time. So thank you for being with us today.
And on the bright side, it's so nice to see you two together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Listen, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Really appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
We were just speaking to a grandmother there as well. What's the sort of reaction that you've had that they might be able to see? I mean, what do they make of the new guidelines for starters? What do they think they can do?
Encouragement going on Gransnet as well about the fact that at some stage, hopefully, maybe weeks down the line, things will get better. Is that helpful for people?
There is.
Note. Laura, thank you very much indeed. Laura Crisper, editor of Gransnet. Thank you.
Matt was telling us yesterday about this sort of dramatic drop. Let's find out what's happening.
What he's got.
Oh, well, look at this.
My goodness.
What's the picture? What's going on there?
In the meantime, it's the big coats again. Thank you very much, Matt.
Chilly days ahead.
Yes.
Good morning. It's 8:31. You're watching Breakfast with Louise and Dan this morning.
Let's get you up to date with everything. Boris Johnson's defended his plans to relax the lockdown rules in England at a faster rate than the rest of the UK.
If you live in England, you're being told to stay alert, but in Wales, the official advice remains unchanged. Stay at home. The Welsh Health Minister...
Let's get an update on Sally. And there might be some sport, on the 1st of June, but it's certainly not going to be in the way we're accustomed, is it? No, it's not. Thank you very much. Thank you.
There's a bit of sport news around today. It's been a while, isn't it? Yeah.
It's going to be back at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't quite know when. The boss of Europe's biggest airline, Ryanair, has told Breakfast most people will ignore the government's plans for enforced quarantine of most passengers arriving into the UK, and he's planning to increase the number of flights on offer by July. Well, that's quite something to say, Sean, isn't it? Morning.
Yeah, morning. It is quite something.
Sean, thank you. It's interesting seeing that interview.
It's one of those industries,
Thank you for joining us. So, Dame Donna Kinnair, how important is it today, do you think, that we remember nurses in particular?
Well, the main aim of the celebration today was to raise...
Give us an idea. Talk about the fact that there's all this clapping being taken part on a Thursday. Tonight's going to be a little bit different, but give us that picture. So, what being a nurse means to you? Why is it important? Is helpful and it's great to be acknowledged in that way. I was listening to two nurses speaking on a podcast last week, and they were talking about how they feel that some of the things that they've seen and their colleagues have seen and witnessed over the last few weeks, that they feel that once we are the other side of this crisis, there'll be a real issue with post-traumatic stress disorder. Is that what some of your members have been discussing as well? I can see Matt nodding along to that.
Well, I can imagine that the effect of this crisis will have some nurses...
So do you think, Donna, that perceptions about nursing have kind of had a fundamental shift? People have always loved nurses, but do you think it's changed as well?
Lots of things are very different at the moment, aren't they? And one of those certainly will be the Eurovision Song Contest, because it's facing its Waterloo this year. It was due to take place in Rotterdam on a Saturday night, but it had to be cancelled because of the ongoing coronavirus.
The music, however, will still rise like a phoenix.
Nice.
There are some big fans out there, aren't there? All 41 acts will still perform their songs for a TV audience, but without the judging. What a shame, and without the live audience.
That is great news for Eurovision's famously fervent fans, who...
We have seen some amazing things during lockdown, but that, I tell you what, I think that's going to my number one, Steve. You look like you were in... I'm not sure whether you're in heaven, but you're enjoying it. You know what? I'm always going to join in. So you set us a little teaser a little bit earlier. I think people have got it right. Do you want to set it again and then tell people what the answer was? It came second in Was it 1972 or 82? Did you say? Sorry. I'm getting myself confused.
72.
Steve, we've had lots of requests for you to finish the programme today. Can you give us a classic? I was just checking the ear to make sure I got this right. Can you take us back to 1974? Can you whip out a bit of ABBA on the piano for us?
So much.
See you at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching today. Bye.
Bye.